Well, if you listen to the corporate media or the Biden Justice Department, crime in the United States is plummeting in almost every major category. Listen.
Crime for 2023 in almost every category is down. That's according to new data from the FBI that runs counter to popular perception. According to a Gallup poll, 77% of Americans believe crime in the U.S. is up compared to a year ago.
But is that true? Dr. John Lott has penned a new piece for the Wall Street Journal, and he says not so fast. And Dr. Lott joins us now. John, great to see you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you here. Your piece in the Wall Street Journal is titled, "The Media Say Crime is Going Down. Don't Believe It." Why shouldn't we believe it, John? I mean, I believe everything the corporate media tells me to think. So, why?
Well, you're a smart guy. What can I say? Headline after headline, it says what you say, and that is that crime's going down, violent crime's going down across the board. But people don't understand that, and the media is out there saying that people are mistaken. Maybe they blame it on, other media accounts or something. But my own point would be that I think the media just doesn't understand the crime data that they're using. And I think people have a much more accurate perception of what's going on. Look, there's two different types of data that we have on crime. There's the FBI Uniform Crime Reports. This looks at the number of reported crimes to police. And then we have something called the National Crime Victimization Survey, which surveys 240,000 people each year. They've been doing this for 50 years. And the point of that data is to try to get a measure of total crime, because we know most crime, most violent crime, and overwhelmingly most property crime isn't reported to police. And we also know that that share changes over time. And so you can have a situation, and I think we do see this clearly, where reported crime is falling, but total crime is increasing. I'll just give you a simple example. If you look at the change in violent crime from 2021 to 2022, reported violent crime for the FBI fell by 2%, but the National Crime Victimization data shows a 42% increase in violent crime between those years. And in the past, these numbers have generally gone very closely together. It's just been since 2022 that these two measures of crime have really just gone in completely opposite directions. And so the question is, why is that the case? What's happened since 2022 and on that's caused these two numbers that nobody's really kind of questioned before? Should we rely on one or the other, because they tended to go together, and now they're going in completely opposite directions.
I guess, that is a question. You stole the question right out of my mouth. Why are they going in different directions? Why haven't we questioned these numbers before?
Well, because there hasn't been a reason really to question them before, other than the last few years. But I think there's a few really obvious and simple explanations for it. One thing we know is that the rate that people report crime can be explained. And the big thing that explains it is whether or not people think the people who commit the crime will be caught and punished. If you don't think people are going to be caught and punished, people are less likely to go and report the crimes to police. And what we've seen over the last few years, and I don't think people appreciate this quite as much, they have some idea, is that law enforcement in the United States has just completely collapsed. I'll give you a simple example. You look at large cities with over 1 million in population. Their average arrest rate for violent crimes prior to 2020, for the 5 years before that, was 44%. It started falling in 2020, and by 2022, it was down to 20%. So the arrests for reported crimes, not for all, but reported crimes, fell from 44% to 20%. To put this in a different way, if you look at arrests as a percentage of all violent crimes, only 8% of violent crimes in those cities result in arrest. Only 1% of property crimes, all property crimes, result in an arrest. And that's arrests. So not all arrests result in charges. not all charges result in prosecutions, and not all prosecutions result in convictions. And so, you're talking about, when you're talking about property crimes, you're talking about way less than 1% of people who commit property crimes are going to get punished. And so, and it's a very small percentage for violent crimes. So it's essentially riskless for a huge percentage of these criminals to go and commit crimes. And so you've seen a couple things. One is you've seen a big increase in crime because it's not, what do they have to fear for committing the crimes now? But you've also seen people not taking the time to go and report the crimes. I'll give you a couple of examples on this. I mean, we've heard stories from across the country where if you call up police in certain cities, they'll go and they'll say, well, unless the criminal's right there, right now, we're not going to send somebody out, but you can come down to the police station and write out a report, and we'll take it there. Well, you're making it more difficult, more costly for people to go and report crimes. It's not too surprising that they're going to be less likely to report them. But on top of that, people are also frequently told, particularly for many types of crimes, that nothing's going to happen. And so they think, well, you're making me go down to the police station. You're telling me that almost nothing's going to happen. There are reports that when people go and talk to the police, they say, well, I can take the report. Because, simply calling 911 doesn't report the crime. You have to have the police come out and actually write up a report on it. In New Orleans, I was just looking at some numbers. The average response time for 911 calls is 3 hours last year.
Wow.
And so what you've had happen is we had defunding the police. We had cuts, New York City cut the police budget by $1 billion a year in 2020. Chicago cut the number of police in 2020 by 400 positions that were there. We've had massive retirements for police officers across the country. Even in the last year, when you've started to hire more police, they haven't been able to hire enough police to replace those who are just retiring over the last couple of years. But it's, you get a new guy with 1 year of experience, he's not going to be as effective as some police officer who just retired, who had 10 or 15 or 20 years of experience that was there. And also, not only do you have fewer police to go and do the job, but you also have demoralized the police. In many of these urban areas, they have to ask themselves, what's the point of arresting people if I know they're not going to be charged, if they're going to be released as soon as I bring them in? And so, the police say, what's the point of going and arresting them? And beyond that, you've had changes in the policing rules. So a lot of places like New York City, Chicago has had this for a while, where you have to fill out all these forms whenever you go and talk to people. In Chicago, every time a police officer talks to somebody, they have to fill out 2 legal pages of forms that take about an hour on average. Wow. So you go and talk to 4 people in the morning, your afternoon is taken up with paperwork. Who did you talk to? Why did you talk to them? What did you talk to them about? Where were they? Other characteristics of the individual, one that they want to know the race and sex of the individual that you talk to. And so, the police officers think, do I really want to go and talk to somebody? Because if I just go and talk to somebody, I have to go and I'm going to be stuck with all this paperwork there. So police officers, not only are they less willing to go and arrest people, they're less willing to go and engage and talk to people and learn things about what might have happened with regard to the crime.
Do you think they're trying to hide something here? We have obviously a confluence of events, right? You have defunding of the police. You have people who find out that they're less likely to do anything about it, so they're not driving down to the police department and filing papers instead of calling them to come show up at their house. Do you think that there's something nefarious going on here within the FBI or the Biden administration, Department of Justice, that's trying to hide something here with the way this information is reported and cataloged?
Right. Well, I mean, I worked in the Department of Justice for a while recently. I was senior advisor for research and statistics at first the Office of Justice Programs and then the Office of Legal Policy. And I could tell you war stories about dealing with the data people in the FBI, and I can get into that in a minute. But the general issue is, you look at the district attorneys around the country, these Soros-backed district attorneys, and they will say openly that they don't think that law enforcement deters criminals. I mean, look, I'm an economist, and economists basically have this notion that incentives matter. If you make something more costly, people do less of it. If the price of apples go up, people buy fewer apples. If you make it risky for criminals to go and commit crime with higher arrest rates, higher conviction rates, longer prison sentences, you're going to reduce the amount of crime there. We recently did looking at these AI chatbots to see the biases that they might have. And we asked 16 questions of the 20 chatbots on crime as well as gun control type issues. And so we would ask, do you think higher arrest rates and conviction rates reduce crime? Do you strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree? And except for Elon Musk's Grok, the other chatbots basically would disagree with that. Things like Facebook's Llama and Google, their chatbot, would strongly disagree that higher arrest rates and conviction rates reduce crime. Do longer prison sentences deter crime? You just see across the board these AI chatbots saying that they don't think law enforcement matters. And so I think there's this view that's out there that some people, I mean, to me, it's not, again, I just can't get my mind around why people believe this, but that arrest rates and conviction rates and prison sentences don't matter. Things like the death penalty, they don't think matters. Things like, voter IDs, they don't think reduce vote fraud. And so that's kind of one view. I think there's that you have to acknowledge. Now, I'm happy to go and talk about the biases at the FBI. Here you can have a situation where, well, there are a couple of issues with the data. Since 2021, over 30% of police departments in the United States have stopped reporting crime data, reported crime data to the FBI. They've moved to this NIBUS system during the Biden administration. And it's not obvious why they would stop reporting this stuff, because you can go to the websites for these different cities, like New York and Los Angeles stopped reporting their crime data to the FBI. Now, it's not like it goes in there as zero in the FBI numbers. They go and estimate what it is. I would go and argue that they probably have done a pretty poor job of estimating what those missing numbers are. And I would argue also there seems to be systematic biases in terms of how they estimate these things. But but there's other problems there. There's apparently a number of police departments, when they have reported crime data to the FBI systematically changes the numbers that these jurisdictions provide them from places like Baltimore. So Baltimore will say, we've had so many murders, and the FBI data records it as 25 fewer murders than what Baltimore reported it to them as. And I've tried reaching out. I haven't gotten an answer yet as to why, but it seems to be pretty systematic. It's not a large number of places, but it's concerning that it's happening at all. And when you combine it with probably the errors that they have in just their estimates for the places that aren't reporting it, you have some real questions that arise.
So the piece, if anyone wants to read it, we'll have it linked up in the description below. It's called "The Media Say Crime is Going Down, Don't Believe It." So when you see all these news reports over the past few weeks that the Biden the Biden administration has really cracked down on crime. The Biden FBI is really cracking down on crime. It's safer in America now. Don't believe it. Dr. John Lott, great to see you. Thank you so much for this. We appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for your time. People can find more detail on this on our website at crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org if they're interested.
Perfect. We'll link that up in the description as well. John, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. You know, YouTube thinks that you'll actually like this next video right here. It's personalized based on your own viewing habits. So if you watch the video, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think about it. And we will see you next time, everyone.